that.
Ready?
All right, yeah.
Stay with me. All right, welcome back to another episode of Oak and Rock Fatherhood. I am your co-host, Anthony Miglarino, along with Zac Small, live and in person. We're bringing you Oak and Rock Fatherhood. Today, we're going to be talking about fear-based parenting. What are we doing as fathers? Are we showing our kids what a strong man is, how a strong man behaves, how he acts, or are we trying to push fear into them? Are we trying to make them comply through threats, through fear-based parenting? You know, this is something we talk about a lot, and there's definitely better ways that we can parent our kids, right? If we come from a place of connection and love, our kids will behave better. We won't have to resort to throwing fear at them every time they make a mistake or every time they mess up. And, you know, I know for myself, and I'm sure for you, Zac, when you remove this fear-based parenting, the constant threats, yelling, having your kids actually really fear you, when that's gone, you can be creative, you can be kind, and that's when the relationship really takes shape into something great.
You know, it's interesting when you say that. I was thinking about how, you know, when you think about fear, there's a lot of worry that goes with that. And like, you're afraid of the thing happening. So I think worry is another word that's not interchangeable, because I think the worry is the symptom of the fear. Like the fear is causing these parents to be so worried about not parenting the best way, about screwing their kids' lives up, about not making the perfect choice at the perfect time all the time. And this is something, admittedly, sometimes I do get caught up in like, well, what's the right decision? And, you know, we've had calls where I'm like, dude, like, what do I do? And you're like, hey, man, like you're thinking too much. Like, relax a little, look at the bigger picture here. And every time I've done that, I've found a way to better connect with my kids. You know, I found a way to better understand what they're going through. And then through doing that, it pulls me away from that fear, that worry, and brings me back to the land of like the solid foundation of like, all right, I'm here. You know, this event at 12 years old, at 9 years old, when they're 15, they're not going to be looking back on it. You know, when they're 20, they're not even going to know what happened. So why am I so caught up? Well, the reason I get caught up, the reason all parents get caught up, is in that moment, you just want to be the best parent you can be. And, you know, a lot of these parents who are afraid, honestly, there's two categories. There's like a healthy fear. And those are the dads who sometimes they're like, I'm never doing enough. I give them my all, but I want to give more. That to me is a healthy fear, in the sense of like, I'm never satisfied in life. I'm very content with where I am, but I always want more. Then there's the group who the fear is a negative. It's an anchor. And they're plagued to take any action, because they're either trying to keep up with what they think is expected of them, or they can't let go. And it's like they hug the puppy so tight they suffocate it. And the thing they love, they break. And, you know, their kids suffer the most out of everybody, because it's their life that's being controlled there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think we need to really be aware of it and understand, you know, to be a good father, we can't be in this program of operating out of fear. We really have to notice it. We have to see it. Because the truth is the effects will be damaging. You know, if think about it just in general, as a man, as a grown adult, if everything you do, you're second guessing, you're worrying about it, right? You're not sure, you can't make decisions. There is, you know, an element to that where you have to trust your instincts to a degree, right? You have to, that gut feeling, right? That's real, right? How many times have you had that gut feeling you didn't pull the trigger, you didn't do it, and then you're like, oh man, I should have. That's real. So, and the reason I bring it up is with parenting, you really have to get back to that instinctual, like raw, masculine part of who you are. Not let the fear, the deception, you know, my kid's acting out because he doesn't like me, or my kid's acting out because they're being a little shit, right? You really have to get back to what's going on, right? How can I help my kid? That's what leaders do. That's what men should be doing.
Well, that term right there is what I was just thinking of. How many leaders have to make a decision knowing that the weight of that not being the right decision could be catastrophic? Yeah. And then from business, we're going to sell, and then it was the wrong time to sell. We're going to buy, wrong time to buy. Or military, you make a choice, people could die.
Yep.
And you have to own that. You have to understand. So there is, and to me, we're really speaking to two things here. There is a fear of knowing the weight of your decisions. And then there's the crippling fear where you don't make a decision And that is absolutely going to lead to negative results. And so we're talking about leadership. We're talking about fathers leading families. These men want to say, I'm the leader of the home, yet they can't either speak out for their kids or they can't make a decision at all. And so their kid is left defenseless. And so their choices are being made by mainstream media, by politicians who don't give a shit about the family unit. They're being made by possibly friends and family who don't have the best intentions for that individual as opposed to what's best for them. And let's say something like the vaccine, something like the mandate, something like homeschooling versus public schooling. It's not just, these hot topics. Something like how your child should eat. Some people, my kid eats everything. Your kid should be vegetarian. It's not good for them to eat meat. I've had these conversations, man. Not me, like nobody would push back on that, but with other people going through issues. And they're like, well, I don't know what to do. Well, you're the leader. Yep. You can't get stuck here. You cannot let this hold you down. But that is why Oak and Rock is here. That is why FOE, these masculine communities of men looking to be better. If you don't have that as a father, you don't have a sounding board to go talk to other leaders. You're kind of stuck. You're on an island and you can't go to your wife because maybe she's confused too. Well, where do you turn? Yeah. Who can you turn to if you don't have any friends in a network? If you don't have any other leaders to turn to? Of course you're afraid. Everything's on you. You have no one to rely on.
Yeah.
It's freaking wild.
No, it is. And I mean, just the word leadership, right? Being a good leader. There's something missing in fatherhood, right? We so clearly see it in business to be a good leader. It comes with some evidence of success. To be a good leader in business, you have to be successful, yep. Right? Whether that's monetary. I would say with me, it from my business, it shaped from being a monetary success to actually my customers being appreciative, my employees wanting to be there. So there's different elements to it. But with fathers, we miss this completely, right? We think parenting is to be successful, you have to have that obedient kid. Your kids actually listen to you. And we don't question why they're listening, right? Is it because we screamed really loud? Is it because we made them completely afraid of a deep voice and overshadowing them, right? Our physical presence. And that's not what leaders need to be doing in this day and age. And to your point, if you're not around other men who are actually really leading their family, you're going to be in this delusion of what it means to be a good dad, right? You're going to be around other men who are saying, yeah, my kid disobeys, I throw him in his room and I lock him in there for a day. He'll understand. But that's not leading. There's nothing about that has to do with leadership. So we really need to get back to that. And like I said before, this is our natural role. This is what men need to do. In order for the tribe to survive, we need to be leaders. The reason their kids are addicted to video games, they're taking fentanyl, they're on anti-anxiety medication, they have ADHD, all these disorders, these mental health issues, is because nobody was leading them prior. And now we see the effects of poor leadership. I'm not saying everything's entirely connected, right? It's not correlated, everything. But in order to be a good leader, right, you would see success in childhood. You would see kids growing up who were really kicking ass in life, who were getting into good marriages, good relationships. The divorce rates would go down. The amount of medication that young adults were on would be minimized. The suicides would go down. To me, that is all a good effect of real leadership. When we see the opposite, we have to start taking responsibility as fathers.
When I like that comparison there, because you're in the red or you're in the black, and that's a great way to evaluate your day as a leader. Were you in the red today? Were you yelling? Were you spanking? Were you frustrated? Or was today a day in the black? You did all right. You had some connections, you had some good conversations. And the aim, obviously, if you had a calendar and you're putting a red X or a black X, is to get as many of those black X's as you can. Days that you are productive, days that you are profiting. But this is an intangible profit. This is when the kid comes to you to have a conversation. The kid's no longer scared of you. Your child is doing those things. Hey, Dad, I went and I gave a report today and I wasn't nervous standing in front of people, because that is leadership. You have to be able to stand out front. And that's why, fear-based parenting, leaders step up in front of, you have a line of dudes. Who's the leader? Step up. A lot of people will be plagued by fear. We see one or two dads step up and start saying, I'm done with the spanking. I'm done with the corporal punishment. I'm done leading from fear. I'm going to lead from the front. I'm going to embody my values. I'm going to embody my morals. I'm going to show my children through my life. And I'm also going to guide them along the way. And when they mess up, I'm going to treat them like I would another adult. If you messed up, I would never say, take your pants down, I'm going to spank you. You know,
I wouldn't allow you, bro.
I'm just saying, like, if you were sitting there and you were like, man, I'm really pumped up. I'm super, like, I got a lot going on. I wouldn't say, hey, you need some pills.
Yeah.
I got to calm you down, man. You're too excited. You'd be like, don't touch me. And I'm going to punch you. So I see that with fathers is they don't step up because they're afraid, but they see the fathers, they see the connections, they see these relationships either on television or through other men, or they're looking at what we're doing here. And they're like, I want what you have. Then you have to take that step. They have to get over that fear. And, you know, I was wondering, what's your opinion on leaders are born, they're not made? Because that bleeds really well into this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, nature versus nurture. I believe that leaders are made. And I believe this about all children. I believe that children are born pure and honest. And it's the parents or society too, but that's what really destroys a child's soul. So I don't know. I mean, if we stopped abusing kids during childhood, maybe we would actually see they were naturally born to be leaders. I don't know. It's a tough spot because I don't think we've ever had in society a place where a child was born. They weren't physically hit. They weren't neglected. They weren't, and I'm not talking extremes. I'm talking a parent who puts their kid in a timeout. A parent who the child says, I have a problem, I need help. And they say, go stand in the corner. Or a child who says, has a temper tantrum and acts out, and the mom or the father completely ignores them for 3 hours. They have these feelings going on inside and nobody's helping them. So I think once we actually get to that point, right? I know your kids are being raised that way. Mine are. A lot of fathers we speak to and work with. I think it could be a natural progression into creating strong leaders, as you know, as these kids are relieved from the burden of this trauma and pain in childhood.
Yeah, I've sort of broached the subject with the family alpha, and basically the way I broke it down was there's extroverted leaders and introverted leaders, and I don't mean it in the literal sense of the word extrovert, introvert.
Yeah.
But there are people who will step up. I fall into the extroverted.
Yeah,
I will go in front of a crowd and I'll do my thing. But there are people who would never do that ever. But if they saw trash on the ground, they'd walk and pick it up.
Yeah.
If they saw a kid by himself that was crying or maybe upset, they would go over, hey, are you okay? And to me, that's still leadership. And so when people hear this, they think you've got to be General Patton.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that some people are born to be that guy to go out there and be like, all right, let's go, follow me. And then some people they're much more quiet about it. But there's nothing wrong with that, as much as it's just not recognized. Very few people recognize the person who's quiet, helping people out. I pay attention to that shit because it is equally important, and they try to recognize it. But dude, you're absolutely correct. If we want to know if our kids could be leaders, we have to be leaders. No matter what, we have to set the standard that, hey, look, dad does uncomfortable things. Dad is wrong sometimes. Dad has to learn how to apologize to somebody. Dad has to learn how to grow. Dad has to learn how to handle. I mean, dude, if I even use the dad voice, like if that ever slips out, I'm like, hey, like I've got something going on. I'll go to them like, guys, I'm sorry. That one's on me. I was just really distracted with that thing I was doing. So kind of I was high energy. I was pumped up, not mad. And I just let them know, like, hey, and it's very rare that happens, but that's the closest I come to, I guess, domineering behavior, trying to control is the voice. And it's just one of those, it rolls out, but I'm so aware of it because it happens that now they'll like come to my throat. I'm like, all right, guys, that's leading myself to being a better man.
Yeah.
Which will lead them to better individuals.
And I think that's a lot of where it comes from. One thing that stood out with me from that story is you are at a point where you're not apologizing for who you are, right? If you go to that extreme, then you'll make the apology. But to be in a place with your kids where you yourself as a man, you can feel comfortable with who you are, right? And your kids say, hey, you know what, Dad, we know how he is. That's how
we
he
get
is.
it.
But you don't get that until you allow that with your own children,
mm-hmm.
right? So if your son is having a hard time or your daughter is frustrated and she lashes out, instead of trying to suppress that and make it go away, you say, hey, it's okay. right? I get it, right? You see when dad acts out and you guys don't try to suppress me, right? You accept it. It's part of who I am. And I think that is a great, example of teaching our kids to not only be good leaders and fearless, but not afraid of who they are, right? To genuinely express what the hell is going on inside their minds, inside their brains, inside their body. And if they don't have the answer, when it shows up and you're hit with it as a dad, you don't have to be like, oh man, I'm scared of this. You could say, hey, I hear you. I understand. How can I help you? Right? How can I show you that I love you the way you are? This has nothing to do, right? You screaming and crying doesn't mean you're a bad kid.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you need dad's help. And I think that is part of leadership, right? That's fatherhood. And I think if more dads did that, they would be better leaders.
So how do you think they overcome that fear? Where do you think you start with that process of, and to me, and I'll go first since I lob that grenade out there.
That's a quick answer. Right?
Yeah. So I think the first admission is that you need to change yourself. Yeah. I think that is very scary for some because you're an adult. You're supposed to be established. Well, that's what people think. It's rigid. And I think life is much more fluid than that. I think as men, I mean, we've never lived in a time like these times. Nothing in our childhood prepared us for what we've been going through these past 2 years. Nothing in our childhood prepared us for the technology and the access we have. Nothing in our past at all prepared us for this. But we developed ourselves to be authentic individuals in our youth and coming up and as younger adults. And now we're able to handle this because we're operating from a mode of we're not afraid of the change because we know ourselves. No matter what's thrown my way, I know I can handle it. I know that no matter what's put in front of me, I will be able to pull myself through, pull my family through, figure out how to get it done, and I will find a way to get it done. And it's because action was taken so consistently that you can't help but not see I have the resume. Look, that was hard at one point, but I got over it. So now whatever comes in front of me, I'll be afraid. I'm like, man, I've never faced this before. Yeah. But then you just overcome it because you've done it before. And so I think that action, you can show yourself that an old dog can learn new tricks, by actually learning new tricks, by actually doing those new things, by actually living authentically. I think that is the first step towards getting over the fear because you're not worried anymore. And like I said, those are really integrated together. Yeah. So when you're not worried, you're better off with it.
I mean, to a degree, it is the definition of being resilient, right? It's like you said, same thing with me, right? That's my mindset. I don't worry. I don't have a fear of the future because I know based on the past, I'm going to be good. Yeah. There's no reason for me to think that I won't succeed. I've always done it, right? Yeah, there's been really bad downturns. There's been stuff I've had to overcome. But I know going forward that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to make it. And that's, something like you said before. The question was, how do you show that, how do you start? Where do you start from? Where can men start from not being fearful or removing fear? And it definitely starts with from within. And, I'm not going to say that you always have to do the work. That should be obvious, right? You're always going to have to push it to the next level. But I think there needs to be a point where you choose who you want to be as a man, right? What does that look like? What are my values? What do I believe? What principles am I going to live by? And to get to that point, you have to do some deep inner work, right? You really have to study. You can't just say, I want to be a good man. Well, what does that mean?
I think every man wishes they could. There's no pill for this.
Of course. I mean, but to bring it to parenting, right? So fearful parenting, being a father who's filled with fear and anxiety and uncertainty, when your kid says no, you smack them, right? And you hit them because you have an outcome that you don't like, that you're afraid of, really. If you get angry, we know that anger is an action or it's based on sadness, right? An emotion of being sad or being fearful. So instead of when that happens, you make the choice. You say, I need to be a better man, right? I need to change my ways. Next time that happens, I'm not going to hit my kid. I'm going to think about what's going on. Why did my kid say no? Oh, because I told him to pick up his socks and he was playing video games. Okay. So I'm going to find a better solution to that problem. It's going to eliminate not only me physically hitting a small child, but it's going to eliminate within my mind the man that I don't want to be. And then how I take a step to becoming the man who I would love to be, right? The father who I'd love to be. And I think that's where you get growth, is when you make that chance, right? It's the same thing with any, other elements of your life. If you're 100 pounds overweight, you say, I'm going to take that one step. What does that guy who's in good shape look like, right? What is he going to do? And you just keep taking these small steps over time.
That is a great point, because it's not that first grilled chicken and salad that made you jacked.
No.
If you're overweight, it wasn't that first meal.
Yeah.
But when you took that first meal, you're like, this is who I am now.
Yeah.
That's a great, and that is freaking good job.
Yeah. And
you crushed that one.
But usually you're not going to go back.
Yeah.
Right. So within
it'll hurt, because you'll have done all that work. You're like, man, I did all those reps. Why would I ruin all of that to release something? Because you start to recognize too why you are the way you are.
You start becoming a better man, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything, right? It starts to come together. And the great thing about it is, once you think that you're squared away and dialed in, there's like a whole nother realm that opens up that you got to go and conquer.
It's like, dude, you do all this work to get to the starting line.
Yeah.
But hey, no, I think that's rock solid. When it comes to fear-based parenting, I think there are a lot of parents who are still afraid. I think there are a lot of fathers who are afraid, again, to make the wrong decision, but that's what's leading to making the wrong decisions. And so if that's you, drop the comments below, reach out. If you want to get started and you don't know how, touch base. That's what we do. You can obviously see we're bringing this thing live. Oak and Rock is going to continue to grow. The resources, the options, the things that we're providing is going to continue to grow, but not just, through more videos, but more in-person connections, more getting out there and letting one another know, and if you want to work with the two of us, there's a link below. Let us know, reach out. We can schedule something up. You can sit down. An hour of time investing in being a better father can change the rest of your life as a father. There is no better investment you can make. But again, that's on you. You've got to be willing to take that first action. Like Anthony was saying with, comparing it to losing weight, you've got to be willing to change the way you're eating, but when it comes to parenting, the way you're speaking, the way you're connecting, the default you fall back to when things aren't perfect. If you can do that, dude, it doesn't take very long before you turn everything around.
No, it doesn't. And I will say, man, it's good to be doing this live in person.
Yeah, buddy.
Hell yeah. Oak and Rock Fatherhood 2022. Big plans coming. Subscribe, hit the like button. And as always, reach out any questions, message me and Zac. We're here to help.